Okay, before we begin, do let us know in the comments what games that you've been playing that are interesting. We like to give away a free game as and when we can, and I think we've got a couple of spares for some of these. So yeah, let us know. Hello everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp and to the video where we go over some interesting games that we've been playing.
That's right, so we've got 6 games to talk about, 3 games each of course, just games that we've been playing over the last, couple of weeks I guess. I will say, bearing in mind the time of year, all of mine are horror themed.
Mine aren't.
His aren't. But yeah, let's just have a chat about some games, shall we?
Lovely. If you buy physically or digitally, save some money, all the info is down in the description. Alright, what are the interesting games we've been playing? Well, let's find out. So we were approached in the week by the sponsor of this episode, and it has actually become one of the most interesting games that I've played. It is called Ebenezer and the Invisible World, and I have to say, I did actually see this in your upcoming games video, and I thought that looks amazing. And then we had the email saying, hey, can you do a sponsored video? And I was like, yes, please. The stars have aligned. Now, this has a really interesting premise. Now, obviously, we all know the story of Scrooge.
Yeah.
Ebenezer Scrooge. But after his conversion, kind of that's the end of the fairy tale, isn't it? That's the end of the story.
The film, yeah, or the book, sorry, yeah.
But in this world, Ebenezer is a reformed character who's actually quite pally with the ghosts.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a large family within the city that he lives. Who basically control all of the workers, and they're constantly on trying to create this machine that's going to basically, I believe, either eradicate the workers themselves or eradicate their jobs.
Okay, yeah.
So I couldn't quite piece it together whether it was a metaphor or what, but it doesn't really matter. The premise is the same. Now, the guy who's going to do this dies, the patriarch of the family, and then his son was expected to be a lot nicer.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, one of the ghosts is like, well, I was friends with him when he was a kid and he was really nice, but I've looked into his future and he turns into a complete,
So he's the next Scrooge, basically.
He's the next, he's gonna get that device and he's gonna become a right wrong. And so what he does is he then shows this guy his future.
Yep.
And as he's showing him his future and he's seeing what's going to become of him, he sees the device in his hands and he gets a lot of knowledge on how it's made from that vision.
Oh, okay, like Terminator.
Okay. So they inadvertently help him.
Right.
So then he's going to go on to create it. So then step in Ebenezer Scrooge, who is employed, or I should say, I don't know, he's asked nicely by the ghosts if he will then go on a quest to find other aspects of past, present and future to hopefully then change what's happening now, which is they're on a much quicker trajectory towards eradicating all of the workforce.
The workers. Okay, well that's interesting.
It's like, I just wasn't expecting that, I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting from that, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, when I read the title of this with no other knowledge of it, obviously the name Ebenezer, but it didn't click it would be Ebenezer Scrooge into obviously reading that blurb. And it is quite an interesting, not just plot device, but way of moving the game along. That the ghosts are the way that you gain the kind of more traditional Metroidvania type powers,
Yeah, so they act as essentially your arsenal as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You press a button and you use a specific one. You can press the D-pad to switch them out and use different ones. I would like them to change the colour of those in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen because they're all red, which can be a bit confusing. Your brain wants to see a different colour for each one.
Yeah.
But they work, one fires a ball straight up in the air. And they also have a system where if you use them more, they get more powerful. So they'll have like a 50 kills with this one to upgrade it.
Oh, nice. That's good. Yeah, that's interesting.
It's a classic Metroidvania as well, if you haven't kind of gathered that already, in that you've got the City of London, which is a lovely place to play. I've played a couple of games recently. I can't remember the name of the other one. That was in London, but this is the best rendition of that. It's Victorian.
Victorian London is a great setting for any sort of story. It just has this I don't know. It's got so many different vibes to it, hasn't it? That you have the kind of magical feel of it, but then you have the grim and the grime of it as well.
It does. Yeah, it does. It has that clean Christmas look alongside that grimy sewer look.
Yeah.
And this does exactly that as well. One of the first kind of decisions you've got is the direction you move. And you can actually go straight down into the sewers, and like you say, it becomes real gross, real fast. You expand the map. It's not one where you have to go and get maps. It's done by exploration.
Okay.
Which is nice, because sometimes it can be a bit of a pain when you haven't got the map for an area, aka Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
And you don't know where you're going. It does the whole save benches, but it has save rooms where you go in. There's a door, of course there is, like a Victorian door. You knock on the door and that saves your game. What I do like, in all of these games, they're about collecting a currency of some form. That currency has to have the right sound effect.
Right.
So Hollow Knight has this really nice, like jingly kind of like change hitting the floor sound, and this has almost that same like. It's lovely. It's a lovely sound effect. I know it sounds weird, but when you hear something a lot, it wants to be like enticing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I like a good example of that is the Lego games, collecting the studs.
Sounds like that.
That little click,
Yeah.
click, you know?
Yeah, that's a perfect. Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like, to be fair. Now, another thing that is important here is obviously it's a smaller team. They're working on patching things up. I did experience a bug where when I first installed it, the performance wasn't great, and I was like, this is weird because the trailer looked amazing. Then when I restarted the game, it went to 60 frames per second.
Okay.
So I would say on your first playthrough, almost boot it up and restart the game.
Right.
Because something was going on. And I was actually really pleased because when I sent you the footage yesterday and was like, this is amazing, it was running at like 20 frames per second. But after the reboot, it was up to like 50, 60.
Right.
Which is, so much better. You want that like precise control. So you've got like I think he's using his cane as a sword, which makes sense.
Yeah.
You got those, again, really nice sound effect, really responsive and snappy, easy to control. I love the fact that he grabs the edge of ledges.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know when your whole upper torso is over a ledge in a game and they can't climb up and you're like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
Get your hands out and climb up.
Prince of Persia style.
Prince of Persia. Here he grabs the ledge and he's up there. He's loving it. One of the first ghost abilities you get lets you jump and bounce on these balloons and stuff, and just the traversal builds up nice and quickly. I think if I had a critique, some of the fights in these games, you always face these bosses, right? You have little boss sections. And the interesting mechanic that you have, rather than a dash move that puts you through them, you've got like a back step. So he does this kind of back step slide. Looks like he's about to bust out in a dance. But the boss fights don't have a health bar. But what I will say is they're not that long. So it's not like you're there thinking like, is he dead? Is he dead? And it's multi-stage, so you can tell you're doing damage because the stages are switching. So I guess it's not even really a critique, it's an observation.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, it is, like I say, I've mentioned it already, but when I read that blurb the other day, it was that part where the ghosts were your powers or were the way that you traverse different parts of the landscape. I just thought that was such an interesting idea. If you're going to use Scrooge, having the ghosts be that was, really very clever actually.
So Ebenezer and the Invisible World then, it's 2.7 gigs. It releases tomorrow, so it's the 3rd of November, and it's £17.99, so it's a reasonable price there. If you're a fan of Metroidvanias, then consider checking it out, and if you're not, then don't.
There we go. My first one is one that I'd wanted to play for a while, and it's only cheap, it's only about £5, but I was being a bit tight and I was thinking I'll wait for a sale.
Doesn't sound like you.
No, but it went on at 50% off, so I bought it for a couple of quid. And it's called Ravenous Devils.
Sounds, yeah.
It's how best to explain? It's a cooking simulator, right?
Yeah.
But before you start thinking of like Cooking Mama or
those games are addictive.
They are addictive, and this is addictive actually. But it's done in the style of like a Sweeney Todd, where you have a husband and wife, and then you own a 3-story building. The top floor is the tailor business. He's a tailor.
Okay.
The middle floor is like a pub, and the underground, the bottom floor is the kitchen.
Okay.
So basically, what you have to do, you have to switch between the two characters, the husband and wife, with L and R or ZL and L, I believe it is, between the floors. And you have to kill people that come in to buy suits as the husband.
Right.
You nick their clothes.
Oh.
You chuck him or her down a shaft. He falls down or they fall down.
They're naked bodies.
They're dead,
totally
lifeless bodies. Go down the shaft to the kitchen, whereas the wife, you then chop them up and cook them.
I knew you were going to say that. Why would you want to play that?
Make them into pies and then sell them at the pub. And it's a time management game. It's all about having to, manage your customers so they don't get the ump and leave whilst horrifically murdering people.
Oh my goodness me. This is why I don't play horror and scare. Like, why would you want to play that?
Yeah, but this is not, this is like...
it's like tongue-in-cheek,
is
it?
Satirical, isn't it? It's based, like I say, on Sweeney Todd, obviously, but to the point where when you start the story and they buy this house, it says that the top floor used to be used as a barbershop,
Wowzers,
But it's a lot more in depth than you first think. So obviously you do that for a while because you can buy different tables and you can make different pies.
Yeah.
And obviously you need different machines to mince up the people, as rank as that sounds, to get the different types of meat you need or whatever, And then you can in the pub area, you can put tables down. So at first it's just like self-service. You put some pies out and people will come in and take them.
Yeah.
But then you can get tables out and you need to go and wait on them. And obviously that takes more time and you've only got finite resources. You've only got the one person doing the serving. You need to kill people quicker up top and chuck them down to keep your supply of meat going.
Oh, wow.
And you have to take their clothes and tailor them, create new garments to sell in the shop up top as well, to keep the money coming in, to buy upgrades, to keep it all going, And as macabre as the subject matter is actually a very addictive game. And what's funny is the first time you do it, so you drop someone down the shaft and she picks them up, chucks them into a mincer, and there's all the blood squirting everywhere. And you think, oh, that's nasty, But then after half an hour of like, my customers are leaving, I'm losing money, it's like, quick, chuck another one down, hurry up. What's taking you so long? Chuck him in the mincer, don't worry about that. Like, you forget very quickly what you're doing.
Well, yeah.
You get desensitized very quickly to it. But
Shafted.
It's a good game. Like, it's very, don't get me wrong, it's very rough around the edges.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in handheld mode, it's so blurry, I thought I'd like lost my glasses.
Is it 3D?
It's it's like, it looks like the old, like a 2D side-on version of like The Sims.
Okay.
From back in the day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you'd see people in that sort of those sort of character models. But yeah, in handheld, it's so blurry, it's unreal, and it is very rough around the edges, like I say. But for £2.24 or whatever I paid for it, you can't go wrong. And it is the sort of game that I would play again. It has a story mode. It's not just there is an endless mode as well, but it has a story mode, and the story mode is quite interesting. It's set around. So, you're doing your deeds and you're doing what you're doing, and then you get a letter in the post someone basically saying, look, I know what you're up to. I'm not going to turn you in, but you're going to help me. You're going to work for me. And then he starts sending you letters saying, I want this person killed. They're going to come to your shop in a couple of days. Be ready. And I just find it quite interesting, as gross as the subject matter is. It's genuinely quite interesting, and that gameplay loop keeps you going.
I'd never heard of it. There you go. That's Glen Bolger, the vegetarian.
Yeah, well, I didn't eat the pies.
No.
I just provided them for the masses,
Exactly right. Yeah, wow. There you go. That's what this series is all about. I've never heard of it, and now
we'll never play
I'm strangely intrigued to make pies.
Oh, there you go. See?
The best pies are in Australia.
Yeah.
And I'm not a veggie, but they had the best veggie pie.
Yeah.
It had like broccoli and cheese and some other bits in it. They don't even make them here. And like the vegetables came way over the top.
Right.
They were delicious.
Yeah.
They don't do good pies in this country.
Which is a shame, really, because you think fish and chip shops, getting your pies in there, your pucker pies.
They can't be bothered though, can they? They're whipping that out of the freezer and they're all about the chips, aren't they?
All day long. They're unwrapping them in front of you, aren't they? Sticking them in the oven.
Yeah.
Freshly
Fray
made.
Bentos.
Maybe if they were freshly made, you would wonder where the meat was coming from, wouldn't you? Especially if it had a top floor of the tailors on it,
Glen's in his like long suit. Hello, sir. Okay, next up then we've got a game called Gothic. Does it ring any bells?
It does ring a bell. I haven't played it, but
nor did I.
Yeah, I do know of it.
So it came out on Switch. We've had a few come out on Switch before. In a similar vein, there was Ryzen that came out that I did do a video of and I had played back in the day.
Yeah.
But I'd always heard about this Gothic game because it kind of set the benchmark for a lot of modern RPGs.
Right.
Things like Skyrim, even Dragon's Dogma to some degree. There's a lot of like overlap there. But I hadn't played it, and I have now.
Yeah.
So I really have been enjoying this one. So you start out as you very often do in these games, as a captive. You're about to be thrown into a pit, and they basically say, "Hey, we want you to take these scrolls to the mages in the world." Don't ask me why. I couldn't quite pick that together. I was just chuckling too much at the voices and stuff.
Oh, the voices.
Yeah, the animations are they're great. I miss all of that, no mouth movements or anything.
Is it like your Skyrims and whatnot where they're just standing in front of you, staring into your soul?
Like their nose is touching your nose. And they're like, "Can you get the scroll?" It's so weird though, because you're like, "Yeah, I'll help you." They're like, "Can you do the scroll?" And you're like, "Yeah." Then they throw you in the pit. And then they get you out, and it's like you'd agreed to do the scroll thing. I don't know, anyway, regardless, it's a bit weird. But what's cool about this is the amount of different mechanics in it that I didn't expect to see. So there's like an underlying faction system. There's loads of different outposts. The combat is a bit janky. Like, you'll see that like shuffling creature, and you're like, and it like explodes. There's these weird little birds that kept killing me. But I love how hands-off it is. I've always been a big fan of fully open RPGs, that let you go over there. And I'm just thinking about the tutorial blokes. They're there looking at these animals, and you shuffle over, and they like rotate on their toes towards you, and they're like, good to see you. Do you need... You're like, oh, yes. This is what I remember. This is what I grew up with. None of that photorealism crap. But in terms of like the game design as well, there's a lot of things like this is not a. I'm not besmirching my own good name.
Okay.
But in games, I like to be a thief.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
You know, I want to be a stealthy thief.
That's escapism at its finest,
Exactly,
I guess, isn't it?
I do. You know, and I see these lads around their campfire. And
Yeah.
I'm walking over. I'm like, all right, lads. And they're chatting to me, and I'm looking down. I'm seeing their money and stuff on the floor. And I'm
You're
like,
thinking,
I'm
no.
having that.
Yeah.
Have a bit of that.
I'll take that. Thank
So
you.
like, I did something and picked it up, and they all got up and were like giving it the big one, and I was like, yeah, this is decent. It's a decent level of I don't even know what you called it, like coding.
Yeah.
They mullered me.
Did they?
Absolutely put me in my grave.
How much did you take? Like, what was it?
All of it. Well, the funny thing was, originally I took their food. I was like, I'll have a bit of that. I'm just there snacking away, and they're looking up at me like, he's all right, like him. Then I went to take their purse. Game over.
Never touch a man's purse.
No, I took his bacon. He didn't care.
It's fine. That's fine. Come one, come all when it comes to bacon. Touch his money, mate. It's game over.
They absolutely destroyed me. But yeah, if you're after like an RPG that's similar, I'm say similar to Skyrim in terms of scope and things like that, well, at least its origins, you're going to really have a good time with this. Yeah, I've been loving it. But I did their classic of sit down to record 10 minutes, record an hour and a half. I think, do you know what? I might do a review of the full thing. And I might actually do a full video for this one. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that. But yeah, that's one I've been playing. I've been really enjoying it. That's Gothic.
Lovely stuff. Right, my next one then is Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. So Bloodstained obviously was the Metroidvania, funny enough, talking about Metroidvanias, that came from the creator of Castlevania. I forget his first name. I'm pretty sure it's, well, I know his last name is Igarashi at least. But he created Bloodstained, of course, and then as part, I think it was as part of the Kickstarter, he created or pledged to create a 2D platformer set in the same universe. And this is the first of two now. There's been two since Curse of the Moon. So I was playing this the other day. I bought it from PlayAsia. They had a physical version with both games on one. Nice. Which is actually a really good deal because I think the others, the only way you can get those was through limited run game.
Man, I wish I knew someone that had a discount on those.
Have a look down below in the description there.
Nice.
Your prayers will be answered. But yeah, not even trying to plug, I genuinely did get it from there, and it's just a great way of owning both games, you know, if you're a physical collector, of course. I hadn't played it before. I played the Metroidvania. Yeah. Obviously, I've played Castlevania games in the past, and this first Curse of the Moon here is very similar to Castlevania 3 in that you've got a few different characters, obviously, you know, linear levels. And it's actually a very good game.
Yeah, weirdly, I actually have been playing this. I played this about a month ago.
Yeah.
So I played about 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
I was really enjoying it. Just because everyone was like, oh, you really need to play more of that because it was mentioned in a sales video.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So I was like, all right, I will. Yeah. Challenge accepted. And yeah, I just find sometimes these older style are a little bit more concise and easy to pick up and play.
Yes. Yeah. I think Igarashi himself stepped back from production of this game, obviously because he was making the main game. Yeah. And I think it was Inti Creates that did this one. Okay. And they have done, amongst other things, in recent times, the remakes of the Blaster Master games. Yeah. Which I love. I think they're great, really good. And in terms of this one, you have, I believe it's 4 different characters. You pick them up as you go along. You know, you start with one character, all got different skills. So for example, one of them's using magic. You have another that can turn into a bat. Again, similar to Alucard in the other games. And you'll need these to traverse some of the levels. Now, you don't have to have them. So if one of them dies, for example, and you can't use them for the rest of that level, you can still get by, but you'll take a different route. You know, there'll be multiple routes, all to the same point ultimately, and you'll fight a boss at the end of each stage, you know. It's not a very long game, but what I wanted to talk about with it, the most interesting part for me, at least, was that there are 2 difficulty levels. You have like your standard difficulty, and then you have an easier mode, obviously. But what interested me about that easier mode was that the way one of the ways that it's easier is that it takes out knockback. Okay. So in a lot of older games, push you off. If you get hit, you're knocked back. You know, 90% of your deaths would be from the fall down a pit from having hit an enemy midair. You know, a lot of the time these enemies weren't even visible until you were midair. Do you know what I mean? Huge cause of frustration for me back in the day. And I just thought it was quite interesting that was how they tweaked the difficulty, was by removing that knockback.
Makes sense. Quite a good option.
It is a good option. Well, it is. The problem is it's not the only tweak they make. They give you unlimited lives and stuff. I would have loved if they just took away the knockback. So that the rest of the difficulty stayed as it was, and it was just that one tweak.
Difficulty should always be toggles, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so, because the game's too easy in easy mode. You can absolutely brute force through it, no bother. And it's not too difficult in the other mode at all. I just don't like knockback in games. So I was looking for that happy medium, and it's not quite here. But I just thought it was quite interesting that they obviously know that's a very old mechanic that some people will cherish to this day. They'll probably hate it, but they'll cherish its inclusion, whereas other people are 100% done with it by now, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, these are good games. I enjoyed them. All right, okay. So next up then, what's my last one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is a game called Song of Nunu, a League of Legends story.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a weird situation, aren't we? These League of Legends games, they don't really get much credit, or they don't really get much fanfare or coverage or anything really, and they do tend to kind of release them without pushing them, promoting them that much. Now this one, I can say unequivocally, is the best League of Legends game that I've played, and I've played them all on Switch. It's a 3D adventure game featuring Nunu and the last, is it Yeti? Is it a Yeti?
He's got a Yeti for a friend, I know that much.
Yeah. So Nunu's a young boy who's got a Yeti as a friend. The last Yeti, he is the last Yeti, I'm positive. And he also has this like flute instrument that he uses to puzzle solve. The thing that surprised me with it, well, there's been a lot of things that have surprised me with it. Firstly, it looks amazing. Like, it looks way better than 90% of the games on Switch, and it runs flawlessly. The Yeti has a load of different animations that you don't expect. So if you're walking along, it'll like kind of grab you from the side and hug you. There's combat in there, but it's done really nicely with light and heavy attacks, and then you've got finishing moves. And there's about 10 different finishing animations. Everything feels really polished, which is surprising. Maybe bar the actual... No, I don't think it's fair to say that. I was going to say maybe bar the world itself, but I don't agree with that, actually. I'm only saying that because I saw a comment, someone said, oh, the world looks a bit lifeless. I actually don't agree with that. It's got a lot of Nordic mythology behind it. And when you see certain things, it unlocks lore items from your menu.
Right.
And you can go in and then see these really lovely detailed drawings and like information about it.
Okay, yeah.
So you might see like a Viking ship or something, and it tells you a bit about it. Plus the perspective is brilliant. It does that thing, I don't know the name of the effect. What's the name of the effect? You might know. That Steven Spielberg did, where the camera stays the same on the person, but the background kind of zooms.
I know colloquially it was known as the Jaws shot, because it was obviously in Jaws, but I know the one you mean, where one zooms to walls.
Yes. Yeah. It uses that quite well. So you'll enter a new area, and that will kind of happen it will look like the room you're in is gigantic.
Okay, yeah.
And sometimes it is, you know. Sometimes the perspective is absolutely huge. It's got puzzles in there as well. There's a fine line for me with puzzling. Like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm the brightest person in the world, but if it's too easy, I'm like, it's almost pointless, you know. I don't want to go collect a key, no keys. I don't want to just flick a switch. Hear your instrument, and I think it's brilliantly done. It really requires you to look at the notes and gradually learn, you know, what button correlates to that note. So you've got the L, R, LZ, and RZ, but then you can combine notes as well. So you hold two together, it creates a new note.
Right.
And some of the puzzles are really timing based. So one of them in particular, you're trying to, there's these little explosive things, and you're opening gates with your music and stuff like that. And you've got to get it spot on. And again, I saw someone complaining that it was bad that you had to be so precise to get it right. But it wasn't too difficult. For me, that was like spot on. So I guess that's just two different opinions, isn't it? I think it's really well done, and I actually started to learn the looks of the notes. My brain would be like, oh, that's LZ, you know. So for me, that I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah.
And then it would throw in sections to keep it fresh, like little race sections. I was saying to you about the Avatar game that I reviewed the other day.
Yeah.
That was so bad. Like, everything about that game was just weak. Like, just what's the worst game we can possibly make? You know, what's the laziest, worst thing you could do? It's like PlayStation 2 game. Yet, ironically, some of those gameplay aspects are in here, but done correctly.
So that's the difference, isn't it? That's the difference it can make. You know, an idea can be a decent idea, but when it's executed poorly, it becomes a poor idea almost, doesn't it? You know,
it really does. Here, there's like a race section, and it was amazing. You know, and the characters like responding to everything you do, a jump, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, like. The amount of work that's gone into making it feel like they're alive. And you have little snowball fights every now and then.
Right.
Like, I know it sounds a bit lame, but it's brilliant. Like, they're actually well done. There's like nice little mechanics to it. There's health bars for each of you. Just a bit of fun, you know, halfway through. It doesn't matter if you win or lose.
I don't know much, anything really about League of Legends. Does it have other champions in it, or does
it's a whole universe.
Right.
You know, it's a whole universe with cities and characters and multiple, and then they can create their own and they can embellish. It's like a world with rules and things and magic, but it gives them kind of framework. Yeah. And I should imagine it's way beyond what I know of it as well.
Yeah,
you know, there's the old League of Legends PC game that was a good game, but I didn't know a huge amount of the lore behind it.
Do they bring a lot of that into this game?
I don't honestly know. I haven't got far enough. So far I've just seen these two characters.
Right.
And you're obviously moving through the tundra and you're working towards a specific goal. I should imagine when we hit that, I feel a shift coming.
It'll open up a bit, yeah. Yes, I mean, I'm assuming, just from what I read the other day and seeing the other League of Legends games, that they're wanting to focus on specific characters and tell their own little stories in each game almost, aren't they, you know?
Yeah, I would love to see them do more in this style. I think they've really hit the nail on the head here for me.
Nice. Okay, my last one then is one that I've just recently been playing actually, and it's called World of Horror.
Nice.
Now, this is a game that I'd been interested in for a while, but the physical release doesn't come out yet. It's one of those that has kind of a staggered digital physical release date. But I have played the digital version now. It's been out on Steam for a while in what do you call it, like
early access.
Early access, thank you. And it's been very well received from people that have played it, and I can see why, having put a bit of time into it. But it does take a bit of time to get used to what you're doing and what you're seeing, because it's almost like an old school text adventure game.
Yeah.
From the old home computers.
Yeah.
Right down to the look, which is like 1-bit, monochrome. Screen is very convoluted. You've got menus everywhere. You've got like a drawn, animation of what's going on, which was actually done in Microsoft Paint.
Yes.
So they actually did it.
I want the game now.
Yeah, they did it old school. But basically the premise is, so it's kind of a fusion of things like Lovecraft in terms of that world with some Japanese manga that I'm not familiar with myself. I believe the artist that they were inspired by, I think his name was Josie Ito or something like that.
That rings a bell.
Apologies if I got that wrong. I was aware of a couple of titles of his work, but it's not anything that I've ever delved into, Yeah. But the story is that this town has been enveloped in this darkness, and there are a lot of strange things going on. And basically there's an elder god that is awakening,
Yeah.
And you have X amount of time to try and solve these cases. So you have a certain amount of cases that you can investigate of these strange happenings within the town, and they're on like your pinboard in your house, and you click onto the case, and then when you go into it's a number of different screens, and as I say, almost like a text adventure game or choose your own adventure, where it will give you a scenario of what's happening and you choose which option to take. It's got like an RPG side to it where you have different skills, things like dexterity, luck, perception, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And these will be affected by items that you can find and apply to yourself, that sort of thing. You can cast spells, and again, that will improve your stats. You can level up at the same time, and then you get perks. So earlier, my perk was I improved my leadership, for example, and you can recruit allies as you go along to join you. And every so often, you'll get embroiled in a fight with a creature.
Okay.
And the fights are turn-based.
Is it actually? Do you see the fight, or is it all text?
You see the picture of the enemy.
Right. Okay.
And it's got some slight animation, some slight movement, and then you have your options down below. So you have like offensive moves, you have defensive moves, spells that you can cast, and you have like it's called time. So you have a time bar, but it's basically like your attack points.
Yeah.
Each action has a certain amount afforded to it, and you can do as many as you can fit within this time bar. Then you take your go and you do damage to the enemy,
Yeah.
And each of these scenarios has a few different endings.
Okay.
So ending one is basically your good ending, that's the one you want. And obviously the others will depend on your actions as you play. It's a lot to explain, and I don't think I fully understand it yet.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest. But I'm enjoying
what you've played so far.
I've played, and I'm enjoying the journey of trying to understand it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes in a game, if you don't understand it early enough, you get frustrated.
Yeah.
I don't feel frustrated. I feel intrigued to keep going and figure it all out, But I just I used to love text adventure games.
Yeah.
And choose your own adventure books and whatnot from back in the day. Anything with that kind of 1-bit, should we call it, style, the old home computer style, instantly gets my attention.
Yeah.
In fact, it's horror themed as well. You got a lot of the enemies are based on Japanese mythology. You can see a bit of Lovecraft in there as well. It's almost tailor-made for me, for my personal tastes. And I'm enjoying it so far. You said earlier about one of the games, maybe warranting a full review.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about this one, because I think it's a game that you could look at and just, sensory overload. There's so much on the screen, you'd be like, oh my word, what is that? But if a review maybe explains a bit of it to you without spoon feeding you everything, it might just give you a bit more perspective of what you're getting,
Absolutely. I don't know how I'd do the thumbnail for that one.
yeah, take some thinking about. But no, good game. Really, very interesting take on horror.
Nice.
I love different types of horror games. You know, I've mentioned 3 in this list if you count in Bloodstained as horror. You know, but all very different.
Yeah.
You know,
I will say thank you to the dev team as well, because I pinged them like yesterday and was like, hey, can we have a code? We would like to talk about this one.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, like I said, I'm going to buy it physically anyway, but I just thought this, obviously, week of Halloween, it'd be a perfect time to have this in one of these lists. So yeah, thank you very much for them for sending that over, but I will certainly be adding it to my physical collection as well.
Brilliant. So there we go. Thanks to Ebenezer for sponsoring this episode. All the information about that game will be in the description. You can go check that out down there. And yeah, hopefully there's some interesting games in there for you.
Absolutely, yeah, some very different games, that's for sure. As we always say, please do let us know of any games that you've been playing over this period. The more obscure the better, really. Just let us know what's out there in the cesspool that the eShop can be at times. Stick it all in the comment section.
Lovely stuff. As always, save yourself some money on physical or digital. All the info's down in the description. Or some nice Joy-Cons. There's also some saving on that. Thanks so much to our Patreons and our members. And for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!